welcome everyone to another broadcast of The Soul of the Everyman on the Artist First Radio Network. All past broadcasts are podcasts. Find them at artistfirst.com. Please send your questions and comments to dj@artistfirst.com. Now, ladies and gentlemen, here they are, Michael and Margaret Lyons.
And thank you very much, Zena. And I'm Michael Lyons.
He is. And I'm Margaret.
I'm being vouched for.
Yes, you are.
I like that, sort of. It's better than a passport.
Oh? Well,
stuff. Ladies and gentlemen, we are just melting out here in the Skylands region of the northernmost Hebrides of New Jersey. It's hot.
it's thick.
It's thick.
The atmosphere is thick.
We are going to carry on.
Mm-hmm. Just bear with us.
Bear with us. So we're going to move slowly tonight.
Like molasses.
We're going to creep up on you. What we are going to bring in this deliberate fashion is the truth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Or at least some form of truth.
Form of truth?
Some form of truth.
Oh, dear.
I mean, that's really our premise. And we might go right to the quote to start off because I think it's a good one. But
Okay.
But just to frame it a little bit, we were talking last week, I guess, as we often do, and the subject of truth came up, and in the context of oftentimes when people tell you something, what they're really telling you is not necessarily the truth, but it's sort of they're telling you what they would like you to believe that they're telling you what they would like you to believe is true. And generally speaking, it's about themselves. So it's what they're saying is, I'd like you to believe that this is true about me. And it becomes sort of a facade in some regards. But we kind of took it a little bit further because people do that with all kinds of things. And what it really is that they're trying to express in one way or another their perspective on the truth, and not necessarily what the actual truth is. And they'd like to promulgate or promote the argument that this is the truth. And oftentimes it's not only not necessarily true, it's oftentimes literally just their opinion.
Yeah. Well, truth in general, when something is happening to you, everybody has their own experience and also their own perspective on it. So according to the perspective that you have, the angle of how you're looking at something, it's true according to what you have perceived. And most people don't admit that the whole truth of an event is not something that they perceived. They perceived this angle on it, and it's only part. So allowing yourself the space to say, okay, this is what I have experienced. This is how it appeared to me. This is what I perceived. But I don't see everything. And that assumption is of I see everything, therefore I process it, therefore this is the truth, according to me. And this is the idea of people believing that there's relative truth. That it's only relative according to where you happen to be standing when the event happened, when the crash happened. You only saw this much.
I mean, and relative truth is just a wonderful thing, but there's also the phrase that you think, and we think we should jump off into all of those things, maybe post-quote. But the other phrase you hear is my truth.
Yeah.
Like you carry it around.
Right.
Would you like to see my truth? Sounds kind of creepy.
Yeah.
I'll show you.
Yeah, truth as an object that can be toted around.
As a possession.
Well, like putting handles on truth.
Well, as a possession or an object is interesting because you can think about you can buy some truth. I'd like you to buy into my truth, and I'd like to sell you some truth. So all those are things. Once you have my truth, you can trade it around, I guess.
Well, if you think of truth in that particular way, but it's much more than this thing that you can put a handle on. Understanding truth is a whole other thing.
Another thing. So we have a lot to talk about here, and every gosh darn part of it is gospel truth.
Oh, here we go.
As far as you know. But let's jump off with the quote, because I think it also adds a bit of color to this.
Sure.
Do you want to go for it?
Sure.
This is the truth.
All right. The ultimate truth of who you are is not I am this or I am that, but I am. And it's totally.
Of course.
Mm-hmm.
But that's pulling out the the old I am who am hammer, which God pulled on Moses, but it really harkens back to something very. If we talk about truth, it harkens back to something that's very true, that we feel even below any reason, that really is extra reasonable. It is outside of the thinking capacity of human beings. It kind of falls into the feeling capacity, but it's closer to, in my opinion, more of a heart, one of what we call heart true, what we've referred to often in our show as heart true. And that would be that when you say this phrase, I'm not this or that or this object or this persona, but just I am. And the other way we've said it somewhat humorously over the years is I be, because the verb here is a verb of being. You are amming, you are being, you are a being. And when you say I am and put a period at the end, I am, and you say that's truth, it strikes a chord below reason. You say, well, yes, I can't in any way think my way into being or feel my way into being, because those things are within my being. The I am, which is me, which is truly the being, contains all things, as well as your copy of the universe, and interestingly enough, what people refer to as my truth, or your perspective, is all within the I am. So you have to have a place. I'll say this in a funny way. You have to have a place to be in order to be. You have to be a being, which is where English starts to fall apart, before you can have a perspective. Before you can promote a truth. First, you have to be. You have to be a being in incarnation.
Okay. To be in awareness is usually the first step. And awareness is a process where you make space for perceptions for the awareness of the environment around you.
Mm.
And to make the decision that you will be in awareness is a natural state. You were born in this state of awareness. You just didn't have the verbal tools to communicate to another being, another person, in words. And when you begin to realize that words have become what becomes a handle by which you communicate, most people have a tendency to just cling to the words instead of coming back to their original state when they were born. You communicated to your mom or any members of your family without words during that period of time. And that is a truer communication because you have to function from the state of open-eyed awareness or open ears or touch. But the soul's response to all of this comes out. And usually you wind up startling yourself in the response. If you've ever watched a baby, suddenly they decided they didn't like what they were feeling in that moment. And they get that look on their face like, well, oh. And then they just cry. And then they're startling themselves because where did that come from? Wait a minute. That cry. It's allowing yourself just the experience. And you're realizing, wait, that came from me somehow, and breathing. And it is awareness in its purest sense.
I think something very, as often happens, I think you've seized upon something very fundamental here. In other words, awareness is a precursor for truth. And by that I mean what you just said. In awareness, you perceive reality, some portion of reality. So foundational is presence and awareness. Next is experiential reality. So you bring it in within yourself. And then that's where it starts to become, let's say, further or more nuanced. So people, you said, prior to having words, prior to having verbal, you have a portion of awareness and reality and truth, which you gather through. So your presence, your awareness gathers truth. It gathers a piece of reality as part of your experience. You don't need to name it. You don't need to parse it up into little boxes. You don't need to organize it. You don't need to think about it. You don't need to even feel about it. The original truth is that you're aware of it, everything around you. And as an infant, this is a wonderful moment to look at, to examine this, because you don't have words. You don't have symbols and concepts and let's say the mores and sort of channels of thought that are sort of inculcated in you in any society through the most benign of motives. You know, you're just trying to teach people how to speak, for gosh sakes. You're not trying to warp them, but you're trying to give them some vehicle through which they can express themselves. But it always narrows. It always, in essence, it always detracts from the awareness and perception, and we can see this ourselves in this exact moment. The words don't do justice to the thoughts which are within your head and the perceptions and the reality from which those thoughts came. So we are very much narrowed down into the ways in which we can express that which we actually experience. So when people talk about their truth, they've already kind of distanced themselves. There's the original, let's say, source being perception. And then way down the pike, because no other way to do it unless we had some sort of, mind meld, comes the thought from which the perception is derived, or rather the other way around. I think I'm correct. You try to fit your experience into a bunch of words, and you say, well, best I could do. Hopefully you're getting it. Hopefully you, the other in the conversation, is kind of understanding. So all the channels of communication that you use, and we use so many, not just words. We use our bodies and our gestures and our tone and then our creations, our art, to try and bring what we have truly experienced in our being into some other way that some other being can kind of relate to us. And that's sort of a fundamental thing too, Ma. Why do we do that? We need to tell people, to tell the other what we've experienced, when actually the truth, the actual truth, is far removed from that. It's within you. It's because you're carrying a universe around in you that only you actually see, actually perceive. No one else can perceive you, truly you. Only they get the kind of the reflections and the emanations of you.
Well, I think that's the reason why all of humanity, every person that there is, yearns to be understood
Yes.
as they are. Who I am. And that yearning gets, how do I say this? Sometimes it's manipulated by your environment. Your family expects you to act a certain way. Your society asks you to act a certain way. Your job expects you to act a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
Or to have a certain type of presentation.
Narrow you down. So.
Well, a face. This is an acceptable face. The other thing is unacceptable.
Right.
So you have to work your way through all of that to understand that, well, is this just something that I'm going to do in order to be included in this group? And if that's what happens, you eventually get to a point where you're unhappy because you realize that there's parts of you that this group is not accepting. They won't accept you, even though they've accepted you to this much. They won't accept the whole you. And that yearning is so deep within a soul, because we know we belong somewhere, and we know that we are accepted somewhere completely, with all our quirks and faults. It's not perfected, because that's the other thing. That's the idea that, well, you can perfect yourself through this life. The concept of perfecting oneself is always fascinating to me, because people come up with these ideas of what perfection is. But you're a limited human being. How can you have a concept of perfection? It's impossible. But people believe that they have it, which is fascinating to me. It's like, wait. And it all stems from that deep yearning that the soul has to be accepted and loved. And it's something that every single human soul has. And I believe, truthfully, that being able to communicate soul to soul that way, find a way to communicate cleanly soul to soul, not putting it in this mental pattern of, well, this is the way my Lego looks. So, can we make a connection here? Will this build something? No, you're more than just a mental construct. That idea of becoming a brick so that you can be used to be built into something useful, that goes against what a human soul actually is. Each person is unique and uniquely shaped. So appreciating that and understanding that there is a place for every person, and allowing that truth, because that's the truth of what you are. You don't have to shape yourself into this brick form.
There's so much there. As you say things, I want to stop you because there's so much, and then you say something else. I'm like, oh my God, I gotta write this down.
Okay.
So I've written down a bunch of things because. So let's start.
Sorry.
Let's start. No. I mean, there's some real gems here. Let me just unpack them a little bit. So I love the idea of making yourself into a Lego, because, that harkens back to Neman and the Tower of Babel. If everyone recalls the story, of course, was that the idea was that we were going to build a tower to God, and we were going to do it with bricks, and that these bricks would be, in essence, uniformly shaped and be able to carry, the foundation of Earth up into heaven. Mm-hmm. And the prophet, I forget the exact prophet's name, Jeremiah, one of those prophets, who knows who it was, said, we are not bricks, we are stones, and we are going to make our altars to God out of unhewn stone, because each stone, unlike a brick, first of all, is made from the actual creation, and every stone is different. Every stone is unique. Every one of us is a stone, not a brick. And to hearken back to what you said originally, which is that, true relationships are built on the other. So the best relationship, if you think about every relationship in your life, the best ones, the best friends, or the best spouses, or significant others, or whatever, the best are people who take you for who you are, who you don't have to put on a facade. You don't have to extend your Lego brick or your credential or your acceptable exterior. You don't have to put on your polite face or say only the things that they will want to hear. So the true, wonderful, good relationships that you have, the very few true relationships you have, are people with whom you can, and this is said often, I can be myself with you. It's not a weird thing. I mean, you can be no one else but yourself, except we literally put faces on ourselves, put various facades or various persona, and they can become very egoic, and they can hide the true being, so that people live only through these sort of sock puppet personas. But if you're truly looking for a relationship that's deep and foundational, that you can really relate to, you're looking for somebody who understands you, who accepts you. And that's what the other thing you said is that in essence, this idea of understanding the other, of accepting the other, of seeing the truth in the other, is a desperate yearning that people are trying to acquire throughout their whole lives. Oftentimes they're led astray, because this group will say, well, join us, but you have to, wear your underwear on the outside, or join us, you have to, it's red team, blue team, or join us, and you have to do these things and have these credentials and all this stuff. And if you do anything that we're not accepting, well, oh, no, we can't, I'm so very sorry, because you're wearing the blue underwear on the outside, and today's red and pink underwear day. So you're out. And that whole dynamic of corralling people into these groups, and then saying who's in and who's out and who's right and who's wrong, these are all egoic constructs that we put on top of this very basic need to be accepted and to be understood. I mean, that's what people always say. I'm looking for a relationship where somebody will understand me and that I can understand them. So we're trying to break down these barriers between the I am, the me that I know is me, the true being, below all the personae, and then you want to find someone else, some other, that you can say, here's me, here, I'm going to lay it all out, Mm-hmm. Every flaw, every wonderful part of me, just lay it all out in front of somebody and say, do you love me? Do you accept me? And they say yes. And you believe it. Then it's a bond for life, a bond that goes beyond life. And then the last thing that popped up in your amazing, it's hard to keep up, it was reminded immediately of Catcher in the Rye and Holden Caulfield, because what was he always railing against? Mm-hmm. Okay, he was railing against phonies. Mm-hmm. And phonies are people who are putting on the persona and trying to be accepted and trying to fit in all the time. And if you're the true being, you're the true I am, you see the falseness in that. And it causes people to kind of withdraw. We know many people who, they're such smart, wonderful, engaging people, but when they sense the hint, the slightest whiff, and I think that's very true of the current generation, the slightest whiff of phoniness and they're ghosting you. They're gone because they just can't stand it. The stink of phoniness, to the Holden Caulfieldization of the current world, has led to a sort of a precious resource. There's a desire for, and a dearth of, but a desire for authenticity.
Yeah.
For truth. Yeah. And so this is why this is such a germane topic, because when people start tearing the truth up into their truth and this is mine and you have to believe what I believe, it has the stench of phoniness, and it is certainly anything. It is the furthest thing from true experience. It is the furthest thing from the I am, that you have to fit into my little boxes, into my Lego pieces, and somehow then together we can have a relationship. But no, it's very strained. So, you say 5 minutes and I have to go on for 20 because I got to get through it.
Okay.
It's just great.
Let me backtrack just a little bit. The Tower of Babel, the king or the emperor or whatever he was called, it was Nimrod.
Nimrod, not Nimon, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, it was close.
It was close. I was that close.
Yeah, that close.
But Nimrod is a word that just rolls off the tongue, doesn't it? Nimrod, you.
Right. Well, this is why people had used it as a very derogatory statement. You Nimrod, you.
Is that still a thing today? It's a word I haven't heard in a long. I'm going to say this. I'm going to go in to talk to the children at my office, because there's all these 25 and 30-year-old children, and I'll say to them, "Do you know what a Nimrod is?" And they'll be like, "That old guy again." And they'll be like, "No, what's a Nimrod?"
You are torturing them.
Well, who else is going to do it?
But anyway. But it's understanding that you are a Nimrod if you basically assume that everybody is a brick and you can be interchanged with somebody else.
Yeah.
That's the foundation of the term Nimrod. So this concept of wanting to define yourself, and it's again, maybe that's the best way to term it, is you're turning yourself into a Lego, a specialized Lego, but a Lego. Plastic, and you snap into place. That's it. That's all. There's no growth involved. It's fascinating, really, but it's almost like, well, if you were going to be a Lego, what piece would you be?
Well,
you could see that nonsense happening.
But if you back up just a little bit, you say that, it's funny because it's so dehumanizing.
Oh, absolutely.
If you and it's Legos is probably a poor example because they have so many of them that you can almost feel like you can create with them. But as a brick, it's very dehumanizing.
But this is the thing. They make it appealing. It's different colors. Pretty colors, and things is uniform to snap, and it's just wonderful as far as everyone else is. It's like, this is not what a human being is.
If we jump off for just a second, because there's something very interesting here, because now with the advent of AI into the human psyche, into the human scene, and it's everywhere, and I think it hasn't yet hit people at a visceral level how much AI is out there. But let's just say that there's a bit of a dehumanization that's involved with AI. It's an abstraction of human beings into a machine form, because they are just reflections of us. They truly are.
Yes.
Every AI is trained on human experience, on human actions.
Right.
And no matter how fast or wonderful or great that they do, or how insightful they can be, they're still just copies, reflections of beings. They're not beings in and of themselves.
No soul.
And well, yes, but there's a bit of a dehumanization going on here. People have conversations. They argue with their AIs. It truly is, Pygmalion writ large in a strange sort of way. Where you're falling in love with your reflection, as well as the dehumanization of turning people into cogs and wheels and bricks, which was part of the Industrial Revolution. It was the wonderful thing about an assembly line was that you could plug any worker into any spot, and with a little bit of training, they could just do the job, because all you were doing was stamping the thing and stamping the thing and stamping the thing. But it felt very dehumanizing, and it wasn't very good for people. And they understood that we came to understand that these types of jobs are soul. It's good that you mentioned soul, because they're sort of soul denying or soul crushing. These sort of repetitive, completely without any creative input. You're merely there as just a cog in a machine, literally almost a cog in a machine. And so this impulse to dehumanize, to brickify or Legoify people, is a move away from the truth. It's the furthest thing away from the I am. The truth of who you are. It's even worse, because rather than have a persona, even, you're merely turned into an object. It's something that just moves and does a task. And when you see certain forms of governance or certain political movements, and we see them in totalitarian societies throughout the whole spectrum of therefore, they always dehumanize. They always regimentize. They oftentimes will uniform, give out uniforms and stratify and classify, and every one of those things is dehumanizing the person and making them more and more of a brick and less of a stone, less and less of an individual being with your own shape. Experiences, your own shape, your own life, your own beinghood, your unique, and we have to get back to our premise, your unique perception of the truth. And to go back to our premise, yes, what you have is a piece of the truth, but it's true. It's your true experience if it's done in being. And to the extent that you allow people to shove you into a brick, you're dehumanizing. Or you're being dehumanized. You're being taken away from the truth, farther and farther and farther and farther away from the truth.
Well, okay. I'm going to go back to what you were saying before about falling in love with your reflection. Because Narcissus...
That was Narcissus, wasn't it?
Yes.
Damn it. Nimrod and Narcissus. I got them.
It's okay. Narcissus was falling in love with what he was seeing in the water, that reflection. And he basically fell, the myth is, of course, that he fell so deeply in love with his reflection that he refused to leave and wound up not eating or drinking, just his reflection. When you think about how someone becomes infatuated by another image, and you understand that what you're doing is defining that outward form in some way, say, well, this is perfection, this is what I want, but there's no real interaction. It is just a form that you're seeing. It's a reflection. It's not three-dimensional.
Not real, not truth.
You can't touch it, and you can't truly live if you've accepted this as your beloved. There's no growth there. It's a seed that has fallen to the ground and hasn't even sprouted. It's just containing itself in that outward form. So allowing yourself to understand that kind of connection is yearned for by you. To know that your soul is yearning for, again, that acceptance, that wholeness of you to be accepted by someone. But a reflection is not the whole you. You yourself are putting boundaries around what you think is a relationship. Or dreaming about, I don't, see, that's the interesting thing. Many times people do that because they don't want to change. The cry of, I just want to be accepted as I am, yes, we understand that. But there's something inside of you that needs to blossom. And that blossoming is a fuller state of who you actually are. It's a fuller state of being, a fuller state of amming. I am, and then suddenly you're no longer this bud, but you've come to a point where you've actually opened and blossomed. And the beauty of who you actually are, the fullness of who you are, appears.
I think it also takes a receptor to perceive you. Although you can be fully aware without having the ability to express. But if you're going for a relationship, you need to have the other that also accepts you.
Oh, well, that's okay. Yes. The walk down here is to get you to understand that there is this back and forth in a relationship. All right? But you have got to do that with your being state. Your I am is going to be related to he who is, the larger divine am, the being.
Well, as certainly as an emanation, right?
Okay, but what I'm saying is the learning process has got to be there, and you do that by having relationships down here.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, that's your starter. But in order to begin to truly fly and grow, you must have that relationship with your spirit to the divine, which is greater, the greater flow. He who is love, he or she who is love. There's no
gender.
No gender. But in English, the default was always he. Why people are taking offense, who knows?
So because we only have so let's go back to the truth, because this is what we've done here.
But this is the truth.
Yes, it is. But I want to explore it a little bit. Okay. So the I am, as Tolle says, the foundational truth of who you are. So your being is the I am. So I am is both an origin and a infiniteness to it. There's the moment of now is the same thing. It's both a moment which is immeasurable and a span of time which is also infinite. So you have this very, very the meeting of the zero and the infinity is right there in the I am. It's right there in the now. So there you are in the now, in presence, and you perceive the whole universe is within you. But the ability to perceive it, as Margaret just said, even in spirit, as an emanation of Source, as a spirit incarnate in flesh, so soul, body, and spirit, within the creation. So the analogy is always the if you will, the cross. There's the vertical dimension, which is the now, and then there's a horizontal, which is the all of creation. And you are at the intersectional point, which is moving, but you are always at the intersectional point. So there you have you, the I am, and you have truth. In an absolute sense, your awareness allows you to perceive an absolute truth in a limited way. So even though you can perceive with the I am to the fullest extent of your perceptions, you have truth. It's an absolute truth, but it is limited by you, by what is incarnate in the world. And so you can perceive all and comprehend a very little. You can have full, absolute truth. Reality is. The isness of now always is. But you still have to accept what is. You have a decision, a volition, a point of being which has a perception, a perspective. And the humility of acceptance is, I don't know everything. It's not that I don't perceive everything. I do. Everything is perceived, but I don't know it. Knowing is a much lower form of perception. And in not knowing everything, you have to accept that as a part of your being. I don't know everything. My truth is not something that I can carry around with me and trade back and forth and enforce in any way, shape, or form, because that's the furthest thing from truth, is that you will enforce your truth on the universe. No. The closest thing to truth is I am in the moment of now, and I accept that I am, that this is what is, that this is the moment of now. I can perceive much of it. I can understand even less. And yet it is absolutely true. That's what reality is. Reality is absolutely true, but your perception of it is very limited. And the acceptance of that is the doorway to wisdom, if you will.
Yes. Yes, to be able to hold presence and observe the environment around you, the unfolding of an event in front of you, and to consciously choose your response so that you're not triggered into a reaction, but in pure observation. What was that we were reading, that the emotions are a very quick response,
well,
as opposed to a...
I looked it up, so I will say that I won't quote the numbers, because I think the numbers might have been incorrect, but basically, if you think about the way the incarnated body works, the physical, is you will feel something much more quickly than you will be able to think about something.
Right.
And that's always true. We always know that, you are, let's say you are triggered into an emotional response, fear or anger or whatever, and then it bubbles up, this emotional upwelling. We say we have space for, let's say, anger, or space for fear, whatever it is, but it bubbles up and fills some void, some cistern of power and emotion, and then the mind kicks in and says, why am I angry? Let me make up a story about why I'm angry. Well, that guy over there, he's probably out to get me. But the point is that you feel things first. In that regard, you can be triggered into an emotional reaction, and then the mind kicks in, the ego kicks in, and starts to try to build a story out of it. Why and how and who could have imagined this, and why me, and all the other things that people put on top of it, and it's all powered by this emotional state. So there's a bit of a flow and a resonance of emotion and thought, all within, and this is important, all within the I am. It is not running the I am. It's not. These are just pieces of you, the ego and the emotions and all these things. But yes, they do flow more quickly. The emotions rise up. We all know that we can be angry and then wonder, why am I angry? Or why am I sad? Or why am I whatever?
Well, to be able to be aware of that.
And I shouldn't say I am. Why do I feel sad? That's the correct way.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yes. To understand that it is an emotion as opposed to a being state.
Mm-hmm.
And to be able to hold your being state as your body is going through whatever this reaction may be. You have to be aware that that's happening and allow yourself the time to come down off that reaction. I mean, the adrenaline hit, let's say, that you may get from something that had happened, it takes time for your body to settle down, especially if it felt as if it was it was about to die.
Yeah, existential.
It's a life or death situation. The adrenaline just hits, and you have to train yourself to be able to manage it, because that's a physical reaction. That's chemicals flying through your body.
Mm-hmm. And sorry, go ahead.
So when your awareness is there and an emotion rises, and to be able to perceive what that emotion is first before you begin to tell the story, because it means that you were triggered. And are you aware of what the trigger is? Because when you're triggered, you're not in control. The emotion is in control.
Mm.
So to become aware of what has triggered you, that's the first step. And it takes time sometimes to do that, because it may have been a response that everybody around you had always given during the same kind of situation, conflict, trouble, whatever it may be.
Mm. Well, I mean, so you mentioned the speed of things coming up, and the idea that you will, and this is sort of, to go back to our theme a little bit, this is sort of how the little monk that said, "Is that so?" So this plays right in, I believe. So the phrase was, "Is that so?" is an appeal to something that we're talking about tonight. It's an appeal to truth. It's an appeal to reality. It's literally saying, within yourself, within your being, regardless of the emotion which is coming up, whatever it is, or regardless of perhaps the accusations or the social pressures or whatever's coming at you with thoughts or with bricks, trying to put you into a box, right? So you have all these bricks being thrown at you, or all these requirements being pressed in upon you, and all this emotion that's associated with it. Perhaps you're being told that you're this or you're that. And the appeal to reality, the appeal to the I am, and saying in the heart, "Is that so?" means, is that true? Is that reality? Or is it, and it starts to shine a light on it. It says, no, this is a reaction. This is a story. This is whatever it is. You shine light upon the bricks, and you say, these are just a bunch of bricks. It's not me.
Well, it's an illusion.
It's an illusion. It tends to yield. But let me just prosecute the thing that happens at that moment is that you acquire the sense of real truth of the situation. You say, well, now I've seen that this is all the stories and the lies and the emotions and whatever else is going on around me. But now I'm in awareness. I'm back in my being, within myself, and I'm saying all these perceptions are happening, but in the moment of now, what really needs to be? What really is the next step? What is the truth here? So the "is that so" is a good technique here.
Yeah, well, yes. It allows you to gain a higher perspective, because when the situation is being thrust on you, and there are many voices trying to tell you a story, you have to realize that this may be just a story. Is that so, as a question, allows you to pull back, to be the objective eyes and say, I see. I see where this fits. I see why they're doing it. I see why that story works for them.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's always interesting to see when someone's come up with a story that works for them, but doesn't necessarily ring true.
I think the kids today, again, we mentioned them again, is that they've gotten their Holden Caulfield, their BS detectors up so finely tuned that when a story comes in, and it can come in through so many avenues, social medias and all these other things, it roars into their faces. They almost it's that now they've instinctively kind of developed this idea of distancing themselves, not engaging. In essence, a sort of subliminal, is that so? Or is it something that somebody wants me to engage in, wants me to contribute to, wants to manipulate me, wants to take me into their story and use my energy and make me a brick in their little tower of whatever they're trying to build.
Right. They need substance in order to make their story valid to them.
Yeah.
But I think one of the other questions that the young ones are asking themselves whenever they're speaking with people is, are there hooks to this?
Sticky?
Well, just in general, they understand when it feels like there's a hook and someone's dangling this in front of me so that I can get hooked into doing something that they want me to do.
The term they use is clickbait.
Okay.
Right? It's bait with a hook.
Right. But understanding that there is no peace before they engage. In other words, this is their moment where they look for the peace within to take the step forward and interact. Does this feel like there's a hook? Is this real? Okay, well, I'll venture forward and say, begin the interaction. If it doesn't feel sticky, doesn't feel as if somebody's trying to get something from you. It's fascinating, but that is one of the tools that these young ones have. They know. Because let's face it, our generation, we were always trained, well, if it was written down, then it must be true. Right. If it was printed in the news, it must be true. Or if they're telling you on the television, it must be true. Right. Or the doctors say this, it must be true. It's like, no, now something has taken hold and you have not gone back to your original training of evaluating right in that moment whether or not this is true, and not immediately going, well, they're the experts, so I'm just going to give it to them. It's like, no, you don't understand the nature of power and what people will do for power.
We were raised, unfortunately now, and I can't say unfortunately, the times have changed. We were raised in perhaps what would be called a high-trust environment. And so to take the blinders off of people our age and maybe older was difficult. But again, once these blinders drop, first of all, there's a sense of betrayal, but then there's this wariness, there's this testing. And in some ways that's that, but it's also very healthy because you see the kids today, and they are reserved. They are looking for truth at a very visceral level, almost instinctual. They stay in the I am. They stay in the awareness because they realize that it serves them so much better. And to move from high trust to a very low trust environment requires training and patience and diligence. But when you're raised in a low-trust environment, you say, oh, that's terrible, I can't trust anybody. But it's also good because you have to stay real. There's a phrase that people say, keeping it real, staying real. But it harkens back to the is that so? When you start to see, and people talk about, getting out of the matrix, it's strange phrasing, whatever, from the movie. But the point is that this blindness of the high trust, whatever you see has to be right, trust this one, trust that. Blindness it's like Plato's cave in one regard. Plato was the original creator or the depictor of the Matrix. You break out. You get away from the shadows and the fire and all that stuff, and you go out into the actual real world. and you have to stop trusting. Well, it's real now, right? Like it all real matters now, and everything I do matters now. But the air is fresh, it's clean, you're alive. So there's a certain vibrancy to this environment now, and those who try to deceive are on the run, in my opinion, more than they were before. When you have a high trust environment, con men thrive.
Yeah.
But now they're having a much harder time, and I think that is the beneficial outcome of this new generation.
Well, it's allowing people to see that your culture isn't always right.
Mm.
You know, it's more of a comfort level. You know, don't disturb me. I've already made the decision that these experts are experts, therefore they know more than I do. Like, no.
Right, and that's a sleeper's position.
Well, it's not necessarily true, and we had had that experience firsthand. Before all of this nonsense with COVID and all the restrictions and everything else that's been going on, we had it firsthand. The experts don't really know. They're doing their best under good conditions where they actually care about you.
Right.
And they're not caring about money or grants or whatever, research, money for research. No. They care about you. That's huge.
But the con men abuse exactly that.
Well, yes. You get institutions and organizations that will, their whole objective is to get as much money as possible.
Right.
And we're not going to go down that road right now.
And power.
I could tell you stories. But you have to begin to learn how to distinguish what your path happens to be, or the path of the one you care about. What is their true path? Not the path that people are telling them that they should be taking, but they have a journey that they've got to complete. And if you love them, if you really love them, you'll allow them to walk really on that journey and trust that the love and the prayers that you send their way, something will always guide them back to the path that was meant for them.
And in this environment, that's the heart eyes, the heart voice.
Right.
When you're thrown through the fire, you can find that voice. But I think in this environment, the kids who are being raised in this environment, they're in the fire from birth almost.
Right.
And so their heart perceptions, if they've fought their way through the fire to the heart, their heart perceptions are very true, and that does, that gives one hope. One thing we have.
This is the pressure cooker that they're in.
Exactly,
and they have to transform.
And one thing we have to say is that the truth is that we're at the end of the show.
So we've reached the end of our hour.
Yes.
And I'm Margaret.
And I'm Michael.
And thank you for being here.